When I was growing up, I thought that being enough meant that you needed to be perfect in whatever sense of perfection you ascribe to. I thought that was what being enough meant. But being enough really means showing up, learning, leaning into growth, into progress, right? So why does almost everyone have this feeling? I know that some people are very confident and they don't feel like they don't have that feeling of not being good enough. They don't walk around with imposter syndrome, right? But there are areas in your life, it might be maybe work life or certain areas in your life where you just feel like you're not good enough or that you're not enough. Why do we struggle with that? I have some things written down. So number one, nurture, the way that we were raised. For some of us, if we had really strict parents or parents that had very high expectations, even though they didn't mean to make us feel that way intentionally, we end up imbibing those thoughts from childhood and then grew up into adults that constantly feel like we need to prove ourselves, that constantly feel like we are not enough. Right? Another reason, and it could also be teachers in school, right? It could also be teachers. Well, I see this mostly with maybe parents that have high expectations of their kids, and these kids grew up to actually resent their parents because they hate their parents for making them feel like they are not good enough, even though those were not their intentions in the first place. Another reason is societal standards. Society puts people against each other, right? We live in a classist world where the rich is treated differently than the poor. And that's just the way it is. It's sad. So because of that, there's a lot of wanting to aspire to something, because at the end of the day, we just want to be enough for us, for our family, for the society, right? And that's why comparison is so pervasive within our culture. We're constantly comparing ourselves to other people. We're constantly comparing ourselves to our friends, to our family members. We're constantly comparing ourselves to the girl on social media, the influencer or whoever, because we just, sometimes we sit there and we think our lives suck. If only we could be X, Y, and Z, because of societal standard and this innate feeling of just not being quite enough. Every culture has their beauty standard. Every culture has their wealth standard. Every culture has their whatever standard. And so not meeting those cultural standards or those societal standards can make us feel like we're not enough. Another reason could also be loss of relationships or just loss of status. Were you financially stable before and now you're not? I'm gonna wonder, was I not good enough? What is something that I could have done differently? And so it plays over and over in your head, and it creates this feeling of not being enough. But I hope that you will work on yourself and realize that you don't have to compete for anyone. You are a one-man show. This is your show. This is your life. And that is okay. You come with a set of life ordeals that are different than everybody else's. So you don't have to compare your life with someone else's. And just because someone rejects you in some way, shape, or form should not create this monologue in your head that you're not good enough. Another reason is also being a low performer in school. I know that there are a lot of kids that maybe they were low performers because they had ADHD. There are some countries, especially developing countries, where ADHD treatment is not as prevalent as ADHD treatment in developed countries. So some of these kids didn't have the opportunity to actually treat what they were struggling with, and so they were not able to perform well in school. And so because of that, you were treated in a certain way that made you grow up feeling like you're not enough. Another reason is nature. I talked about societal standard before, but we're going to dive into it a little bit more. Where you are, just good old plain old blatant racism, walking into a room, for example, maybe just no diversity, right? Walking into a room where you feel like nobody else looks like you, nobody understands your struggle, can really begin to create this feeling of imposter syndrome, of not being enough. It could also just be prejudice or stereotypes. I once had someone tell me, this was years ago, told me something about people from my culture, from my state, and it was very derogatory. And just by meeting me, he had already judged me based on the stereotype of what he thought people from my culture, of how people from my culture behaved. So imagine hearing that over and over and over and over again. If you're not strong mentally, you start to imbibe some of those negative criticism or negative stereotypes that are not necessarily you. Another one is failure. If you have never failed at anything, you can just stop watching this video right now. I'm trying to talk to people that have failed at something, and I want to tell you, if you're not failing at anything, if you're not failing at something, then you're not learning, because in order for you to learn and to grow, you have to fail. You have to do it over and over and over again. Learning to know that, oh, I have experience in this. I'm good enough because I've done this. It's tested and it's been tried. It's proven. I know what I'm doing because I've done this over and over. But you know how many times you have to fail to get good enough at something or to get better? It's not even about being good enough. It's being better every single day. So leave a comment below. Tell me some of the ways that this has shown up in your life. Why do you feel like you're not good enough? And if you think you're good enough, great, because this is the essence of this video. I want us to get to a point where we are just enough, but it is a huge struggle. I still struggle with it. There are areas in my life that I want to be better at, and there's this internal feeling that you're just not quite enough. So if you have that, like me, right, how do we navigate that? Because one thing we're not going to do here is sit here and lie to ourselves and tell ourselves false positivity, toxic positivity. I'm not here to spread toxic positivity to you guys. We need to be candid. We need to be honest with ourselves. And that leads to number one, self-awareness. I went to an emotional intelligence, I sat on an emotional intelligence webinar recently, and I was so amazed by the percentage of people who are not self-aware. Do you know that only 15% of people are actually self-aware? So that means, and you can go research this, that means that for every 6 people you meet, every 6 individuals you meet, only one of them is self-aware. So a lot of people are walking around, they're just going through the motions. They think that they know themselves, but they actually don't. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know why you're acting how you're acting. So the first step to getting to a place where you're not competing for your worth is being self-aware. And I'm going to make another video on self-awareness because it needs to be talked about. Learn who you are. I always talk about learning who you are, but understanding your proclivities, understanding your triggers, what triggers you, understanding where it came from. Why do I feel like this? Why am I feeling so bad right now, right? Why do I always make this same mistake over and over again, right? Self-awareness. Become comfortable with rejection. You were not meant for everyone. You were not built for everybody. This video is not going to resonate with everyone, and that's okay. I'm not making this video for everyone. I'm making this video for the people that it needs to reach, which is you watching this video. You're not made for everyone. Don't let other people's voices and opinion drown out who you are. It's okay to seek feedback. It's okay to listen others, but not to the point where you're completely drained of who you are. Take an active, honest approach on improving areas that you struggle with in your life. I am self-aware. I know what I like. I know what my dislikes are. I know what my personality is. I think I've taken so many different personality tests, and at this point they're all the same. I would encourage you to take an Enneagram or to take the Myers-Briggs personality test, or there are other personality tests out there. Clifton Strength Finders. Find out who you are, and then understand and be completely honest. I know the areas that I struggle with, and it's annoying to me, and I want to be better, but I'm like, wow, this is who I am. So how do I work on these areas? How do I improve in these areas? Make sure that you're taking an honest approach on improving the areas that you struggle with. It's being honest with who you are. Maybe you actually aren't good enough in an area because you're just not good enough in that area. I know it's hard for us. It's a tough pill to swallow, but being honest with yourself and knowing who you are will kind of drown out all the negativity and the noise. And then remember that it is up to you to make something of your life. A lot of people will come to you from their lens, from their perspective. When somebody gives me advice, for example, I know they're giving me advice from where they are in their life and from their life experience, and I appreciate it, and that's okay. But you have to do the deep work. You need to do the critical thinking to see if this resonates with you, if this applies to you. People are going to give you advice that they're going to turn around later and not take. You need to, but in order for you to not be swayed by the tide and emotions of life, you got to first know who you are, what you like, what's your value system, right? So, like I said, remember that your destiny is in your hands. It is up to you to decide what life you want to have. I know sometimes we have all this negative self-talk and monologue. Nobody can see what's going on your inside, but it's there and it's knowing, and I get it. So talk to that voice that tells you that you're not enough. You are enough where you are. You can be better at certain things in your life, and you choose what you want to be better at. But just as a human being that was made out of love, you, my friend, are enough. This is not toxic positivity. This is just helping you to understand that. Talk to that monologue in your head that is always telling you, or the nasty voice always telling you that you're not enough in some way, shape, or form. I don't know what happened or what broke your childhood or what broke somewhere in your life, but remember that you are enough just the way that you are. And you will find sometimes we want to perform for people because you think that if you perform, they will love you and accept you. But there's somebody out there dying to meet the person that you are. Don't forget it. You don't have to perform for anyone. You don't have to be what you're not. There are some people you may not be able to carry a conversation with one person A, but you will be able to carry a conversation with person B. In order to be able to do that, you have to, I'll talk about desperation another time, but you can't be desperate. Desperate energy repels. Learn to know your voice. And if you're going to perform intentionally because maybe you're trying to get a promotion at work or something, or you're trying to get a goal or whatever, but to be performing on a day-to-day basis for people just so you can be accepted or so you can be interesting or worthwhile or whatever, is just not a good idea because it's going to wear you are out. If person A doesn't think you're enough, person B is going to think you're enough. And honestly, you shouldn't have to even worry about person A or person B. You should already be enough in your own kingdom and in your own queendom. So I'm going to leave you with this quote that says, you will never feel good enough until you stop trying to earn your worth. I see you, I love you, and you are beautiful just the way that you are. Till next time.